Let's top five it. All right, this is a little bit of a different top five than we did last time. This is not a draft style top five. This is a personal top five list that Christian and I are going to go through. And this time we're going to go through 5 to 1, not 1 to 5. Does that make sense? This is your top 5 sporting events that you have personally been to in your lifetime. All right. Okay. Now I've got a lot more to choose from because I'm 42. I'm about to be 42 than you do, Christian. But top 5 sporting events that you've seen in person.
So is this the standard now? Is this how we're doing it from now on? No more draft style like this?
No. We'll do draft style. Okay. Yeah, we're just. I just want to do. For some reason, I just got to.
It's personal, so it can't be draft style. Just.
Right. All right, Christian. So my top 5 list, and I've got it written down. It's very, very, it's written down on a very secretive thing. I mean, it's here. It's on my little Post-it note right here. I am going to go. Now, some of mine are a little bit older. Okay. So I don't remember exactly how I felt, but at the time. But historically, number 5 for me was big because it's going to go down in baseball lore, right? Like in the history and the annals of baseball. 1998, Cincinnati Reds versus the St. Louis Cardinals. I was there in Busch Stadium when Mark McGwire hit number 61 in his chase for 62. I was there when he hit 61 into Big Mac land against the Cincinnati Reds. I don't remember exactly the day, but I was there for that. We went and saw a couple of games. And Christian, I know this is in 1998, so I think you were like 3. But
no, I was born in 1998.
So you were 0.
What? You don't know when it was?
I can look. I can find out. You might not even.
I was born in March of 98. So okay. I was probably born. Because baseball doesn't start until later. So yeah, I would have been born. I'd have been a few months old.
Right. Well, I was 16, December 4th. No, wait, sorry. Hold on. It doesn't matter. Anyway, you got to understand, Christian, at this point, like it was the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire chase for 62 dominated the sports world because Memphis, the Major League Baseball was coming off of a player strike, was coming off of just a record low in attendance, record low in viewers. I mean, it was almost dead. Baseball was almost dead. And Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa single-handedly in that 1998 year brought back baseball with that chase for 62. And so obviously the story is finished out where Mark McGwire hit number 62 against the Cubs against Sammy Sosa, hit it over a line drive over the wall. But 61 was against the Reds the week before. And it was like, Mark McGwire dominated. I mean, they would come in, like news broadcasts would like break in and show every single bat that Mark McGwire had that season or that at the end of that year. And so number 61, 1998, Mark McGwire, number 61 against the Cincinnati Reds in St. Louis. I was there for that game. So that's my number 5.
It was in September of 1998. So I was a little less than 6 months old. But
crazy,
anyway,
right?
Yeah. So for my list, I'm going to be pretty Memphis heavy because obviously I've been to a lot of Memphis sporting events with covering the team for a few years.
Okay.
Other than that, I haven't been to many live sporting events because I'm not a live sporting events person, ironically enough. So mine's going to be pretty Memphis heavy because I'm, like I said, not a huge live events fan. But number 5 is the AAC Championship game against UCF at UCF.
Right.
2018, December of 2018 in Orlando. Memphis ended up losing. That was right after Mackenzie Milton got hurt, and everybody was like, "Oh, Memphis definitely got this one now." Backup quarterback's in. I can't recall his name exactly, but everybody pretty much thought Memphis was going to win that AAC championship game, and it looked like they were going to for the majority of the game. But UCF came back, and I had heard obviously about UCF Stadium, now known as the Bounce House.
Mention the fact that he's from 25 minutes away. The Bounce House is in full effect right now.
And I was like, I'm pretty excited to see what this is like. And the Bounce House is a fitting name because it was just a nickname at this point. It wasn't officially named the Bounce House yet, but because everybody was like, yeah, the press box shakes and the stands shake. And I was like, oh, it's probably not that noticeable. No, it felt like the press box was like this. Like it felt like the whole thing was moving, and it was nuts. And it was the UCF had a really good crowd there. Memphis traveled pretty well for that game. So it was a lot of fun. And it's kind of hard to separate a game when you're covering it, as you know, like when you're there covering it.
Absolutely.
There are those games, and I've got a few of them in here where you're able to separate and just be like, oh, this is pretty cool. So that was number 5 for me.
Absolutely. So number 4 for me, that's a good pick. I didn't get to go to that game, but I remember you coming back from that game going, bro, that was wild.
Yeah.
All right. So number 4 for me, this is old school again, man. I'm going back. 1998 was a big year for me in terms of sports. Big year. So 1998, I got to see Mark McGwire hit 61. 1998 regional tournament for the city of Memphis basketball. All right. Was at Collierville High School where I was at school. I was a junior in high school during this time, maybe a sophomore, junior, sophomore. No, I was definitely a junior. 1998 was a year of Memphis high school basketball that goes down for the ages. All right. So the top 4 teams in regional basketball in the city of Memphis was East High School, White Station High School, Overton High School, and Hamilton High School. And all 4 of those teams in one day played a game against each other. So at Collierville High School, 2 minutes from where I lived, I ran up into the stands and got to see White Station play White Station play Overton. And then I got to see Hamilton play East. All right. So on White Station's team, Robert O'Kelly went on to play Wake Forest, had a extensive career in the NBA overseas. But in high school, bro, like all those things you hear about the best players in high school, that was him, right? Coming into the gym, no matter where he was in the gym, was knocking stuff down. Like he was just an elite shooter for White Station High School. Overton had Marcus Moody, had a couple of other players, but Marcus Moody was that guy, right? He was the guy. Actually, you know what, man? I'm getting it twisted. It was Hamilton versus Overton, White Station versus East. That's what the 2 games were. So Hamilton had former Memphis Tiger, great. Now I think he's still on staff at Hamilton as a coach for the girls team. Paris London played for Hamilton. East had Tony Harris, who played for Knoxville, played in the NBA, played overseas a little bit. But Tony Harris was a beast in high school. Overton had Marcus Moody and a guy named Jamie Rossler that played for them. All 4 of those games were so crazy, specifically the White Station East game to end the night. White Station went up by they were up by 20 points with just a few minutes, with going into the halftime. Tony Harris scored 3 points in that first half. Ended the game with 39 points, 38 points, ended the game with 38 points, Tony Harris, and East came back and won that game. Oh my gosh, Tony Harris and Robert O'Kelly Robert O'Kelly dominated the first half for White Station, and Tony Harris just came out and just blew their doors off in the second half. And it was just an incredible game. This was a long time ago, but I still remember as a young kid seeing that and just going, oh my gosh, like this is a different level of basketball. And that was Memphis basketball at probably Memphis high school basketball at one of its greatest times ever, with those 4 teams that had homegrown talent on it, that all 4 of those guys went on and played high level Division I basketball. Just a fantastic sporting event for me.
Gotcha. Well, number 4 for me is going to be the Cotton Bowl. That was one of the coolest experiences ever, bar none.
The Nittany Lions against the Tigers. Ready to lay down the hammer today here in Texas.
That was so awesome. Just being able to see Memphis in that setting, in the Cotton Bowl, being a Cowboys fan, being at Cowboys Stadium was super cool, especially because we got to do whatever we wanted and got to walk pretty much the whole Cowboys Stadium by ourselves, and nobody said anything to us, so that was really cool. And then seeing future Cowboy and the best player I've ever seen in person down on a college football field, Micah Parsons, was you can go back and look at it's going to take a minute, but if you go back and scroll through my Twitter all the way to that Cotton Bowl game, I think I tweeted more about Micah Parsons than I did about the actual game, because I was just so awestruck at how good he was. That's one of the best single game performances by a player I've ever seen in my life, was Micah Parsons in that game. He was all over the field, untouchable. I think that was Memphis's game without Norvell. Silverfield took over that game. Brady White made some ridiculous throws. Kevin Johns really opened up the offense in that game and just said, we're going to go for it. And there was some really, really good back and forth football up until the last 5 or 6 minutes when Memphis, I think it was a pick 6.
Yep.
I think the one that went off of Brady's foot was a pick 6, but very highly contested game, fun game to watch. It was a whole lot of fun, pretty awesome. But that's number 4. Like I said, I wish I had a little bit more variation on here, but I just haven't been to many.
I've been to
right there. A few Cowboys games, but none of them were really of note. I remember the first one I ever went to was against the Redskins, in 2000. Commanders.
Yeah,
Commanders.
It was the Redskins back then.
They were the Redskins then. It was 2005. This was at Texas Stadium. This was before they moved to Arlington. But I think they were winning the entire game. They were up big. We decided to leave a little early to beat traffic. Mark Brunell and Santana Moss brought them back, and they ended up beating us. And we were listening to it on the radio on the way back to the hotel. Because me and my sister were little. We were probably 6 and 4. So my parents were ready. It was a night game. It was Sunday night football. So they were ready to get us back. We were restless, and we ended up losing the game. So that would be on my top 5 worst list, but can't make it on this list.
Well, your list is, I know I started off my list with a couple of old school, old time, kind of my introduction into sports, kind of those big time events. But number 3 for me was Cotton Bowl as well, 2019. It was an introduction to what big time college football feels like, right? Not even just the game. The game was an experience, right? You're 100% right. Seeing Micah Parsons out there, it was unbelievable how good he was in that game. It was just clear he was a man amongst boys out there.
Pat Fryermuth had a huge game.
Tight end, right?
Yeah, tight end. Journey Brown was the running back. He was supposed to be a first-round pick. That's the guy who had to medically retire, I think, because he had neck issues. But Journey Brown was awesome in that game. He, like I said, supposed to be a first-round running back next year, and then had to medically retire. So there was just
what was the tight end's name again?
Pat Fryermuth plays for the Steelers now.
Pat Fryermuth had, and you can tell me, I forgot the name of the player. Was it defensive back for the Tigers?
Carlito
Gonzalez. Pat Fryermuth hit him at the goal line, with the ball. It was the hardest. I was standing 5 feet from it, and it literally shook me to my core how hard that hit was. It was one of the heaviest hits I've ever. I was just shocked at how loud and violent it was. Anyway, Incredible game, but it was more so the experience, Christian. Like it was
Absolutely.
the 2 or 3 days before that we were there. It was being around Texas Stadium, Dallas Cowboy Stadium. What's the area around it called? The Texas, the like the restaurants and the bars and the clubs.
Yeah.
Well, I forgot what it's called.
I don't know what it's called. Yeah, no.
But just being there, going and seeing the Battle of the Bands, like the fan base, even the fans. Like I just remember looking up in the crowd at Texas Stadium and seeing one half be completely filled up with Penn State and seeing the other half go, oh my gosh, Tiger Nation has shown up. And they were one for one, were as loud as I have ever heard. It was unbelievable, the turnout. I mean, it was just such an incredible environment. And I get Tiger fans that have been there that saw that are like, man, we want to get back to that, because as a journalist, as somebody who covered that event, I want to get back to that too, because it was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, if we just look at the NFL talent that was on the rosters in this game, so you've got, like I mentioned, Journey Brown was 100% NFL guy. He got hurt. Noah Kane, former 5-star running back, PT, NFL, KG, Kenneth Gainwell, NFL, Antonio Gibson, NFL,
right?
Calvin Austin, NFL, KJ Hamler, NFL, Pat Fryermuth, NFL, Jahan Dotson, NFL. Like these and that's just offensive. That's not anything defensive. You got Micah Parsons, NFL, Jaquan Brisker, NFL. It's pretty insane how much
insane, man.
NFL talent was in this game. PJ Mustipher, Odafe Owe, Shaka Toney, your Tur Gross Matos. Like that Penn State defense was absolutely absurd. So that was, like you said, the game was part of it, of course, but the experience of just being in that moment for a team that's never been in that moment before, it was really untouchable. So what was that, number 3?
Yeah, number 3.
My number 3 is Grizzlies versus Thunder 2011 in the playoffs. The 3 overtime game.
They've got to go for 3 now. No choice. Conley for 3. Ties it up.
I feel like everybody says that they were there. And fortunately, I was actually there.
I was not there. I was not there for that one.
I was behind the goal for that game. I don't even remember how we got tickets. I was like 13 years old. And I'm not the biggest, basketball guy. Obviously, I'm a bigger football guy, but I can enjoy basketball. Obviously, I stay informed on it at least a little bit. But that was just a really awesome game, a really fun game. Everybody knows the stars that were on those teams, and that was, kind of the first Grizzlies heyday with Tony Allen and Zebo and Mark and those guys, and just one of the.
Let's not forget the general.
Not one of the best teams of all time, obviously, because they never won. They never won anything, but gotta be one of the funnest teams. One of the coolest, like, storied teams in the NBA, because it's just a bunch of dudes that probably shouldn't have made it, and they all made it, and it was just a hard-nosed, tough, old school throwback basketball team that was a lot of fun to watch. I feel like everybody was rooting for the Grizzlies then, just because it was so different. Like, there wasn't people that liked the Grizzlies outside of Memphis, and then that's when they finally started to kind of break through nationally of like, this team is, they're fun to root for because they play hard and they play defense, and they're not selfish guys. And then on the flip side, you've got the Thunder with Kevin Durant obviously being arguably the best player in the world,
and Russell Westbrook in his prime.
Russ in his prime. Who else was on that team? 2011. It was like Kendrick Perkins still on that team.
Was James Harden still on that team?
Let's see, 2011 Thunder roster. I think Harden, that was either Harden's last year or he had just went to.
I think he was still there.
2011, 2012 Thunder. Yep, he was still there.
Yep.
KD, Derek Fisher, James Harden,
Serge Ibaka, Reggie Jackson,
Kendrick Perkins, Thabo Cephalosha, Russ, Nick Collison. Yeah. So I mean, that team was really, They ended up going to the finals, right? Playing the Heat.
Yeah.
Well.
Yes. Was it the Heat?
One-
Yeah, they played the Heat. Yep.
So
That was
that's
LeBron
number
and
3.
D Wade. And yeah, no, that's a good call, man.
Yeah, when you get the FedEx Forum for a Grizzlies game, like full on, like when you get the full FedEx Forum experience, like everybody fired up, whoop that trick going, like it's a ball. Like that's a fun place to be in the playoffs and when the Grizzlies are good. So that was obviously, everybody around here pretty much, if you're a sports fan, has been to Grizzlies games, but that was like my first big one where it wasn't just like, oh, we got regular season tickets to some random game. Like, no, this is a very meaningful, big time game and 3 overtimes, and it's just a really, really fun one. Obviously, Grizzlies didn't come out on top, but it was a heck of a game, probably the best game in the playoffs that year.
Well, I'll tell you this: your number 3 is so your foreshadowing of a Grizzlies playoff experience has made my top 2 list. I will say that one game in particular, and I will share it with you in a little bit when the time is right. But no, you're 1,000% right, man. Grizzlies playoff games are a different level in terms of craziness. But number 2 for me, number 2 is another college football experience that me and you got to experience together. And it was College Game Day, SMU versus Memphis 2019. And again, the game, like honestly, the SMU Memphis game was better to me than the Memphis versus Penn State Cotton Bowl game.
Absolutely.
The game,
absolutely. Yeah. The game
in and of itself was just incredible, like incredible. But it was the full experience of Beale Street on Friday, Saturday morning, going down to game day.
5 o'clock in the morning.
At like 5 o'clock in the morning, me and you turning the wrong direction and having to walk through the crowd to get to the media area. Like, which was all
so
me.
Stressful. It was so stressful, dude. We're like, where did I honestly didn't remember that till you said it, but like, we're like walking against the grain with all these people like flying at us. I mean, it was a madhouse, and we didn't know where. It was freezing cold outside.
And it was so cold. Yes. But just the experience of like, I mean, honestly, Christian, if I'm in a bad mood, I still will go on YouTube and find that College Game Day opening Reese, what's his name? Reese Davis.
David.
Yeah. Reese Davis's intro to that College Game Day. Oh my gosh, man.
Oh, operator, get me Memphis, Tennessee. There is food, music, and fun, but they might as well put football on the marquee for Beale Street, the intersection of B.B. King and Beale, home of the blues, home of rock and roll. Today it's blue and silver as Memphis, the Tigers, welcome in SMU. Historically, this city is splintered in its college football allegiances, but united behind the Tigers today. I know we've got the party in Jacksonville. We got the Knowles taking on the Canes, but the epicenter right here. One of the 8 unbeatens remains. SMU coming in, and I don't know if they know what they've got coming. Lord Almighty, I feel the temperature rising, and B.B. King was wrong. The thrill is here.
Gives me chill bumps every time.
Every time.
It's so good. Like his are always good. Like his intros to Game Day are always good, but that one just obviously, there's bias. It hits home a little bit more, but it fired me up.
Seeing Lee Corso take the Tiger head and throw it on the floor and pick the SMU Mustangs. I think they could have probably picked somebody better than Jerry Lawler to be the picker, but Jerry Lawler's the king of Memphis, right? Like he's that guy. But anyway, just that whole experience, man. I know I'm still a huge Pat McAfee fan, but seeing Pat there was incredible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just the zenith of like the entirety of Memphis sports was just great. Like, because that was the number 1 recruiting class for basketball. And they all showed up. So
you remember right above us was the whole Penny and the whole basketball team was standing on that balcony, like right above us.
So they had Precious, they had James, they had Lester, they had DJ, they had Boogie, they had all these different guys that were there. And so not only was college football having College Game Day show up, but then you've got Penny Hardaway and, oh my gosh, man, that just felt like such a crazy time in Memphis. It just felt like this is so much bigger than what we could have even imagined, right? And so the experience of college game day, and then obviously the game in and of itself, the AG game where he just went bananas in that game, just unbelievable, crazy environment. That's my number 2 of all time, was college game day and Memphis versus SMU that night.
Yep, my number 2 also. Not much else to say about it. I will say one thing about that game though, like usually I stay in the press box for like the entire game, like I don't come down. But that one I was like, no, I came down with like 7 or 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I was like, I have to be on the field for the end of this game. And like, I don't even know if they let us go all the way down there. I think
you were right by the stairs. I remember you trying to get down there and they wouldn't let y'all down.
Yeah, because I think the same thing happened for the Cincinnati game.
Right. Yeah.
Conference championship game. Yeah. So they stopped us at the stairs, but we got to be like in the crowd.
Oh man.
Which, you just don't get to experience that much with a packed stadium. I was like, it's a sellout. Like I'm going down there for the end of the game. I got to know what it's like to be in the crowd for this, because it's a different feel. So I came down for like the last 7 or 8 minutes. It was freezing outside again, but but it was so loud in there. It was so cool. So that was number 2 for me also.
All right, so number 1 is Grizzlies playoffs, 2013 Game 6, Clippers versus the Grizzlies. I mean, y'all remember those Clippers versus Grizzlies matchups, the Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, whatever his name was, DeAndre Jordan. Matt Barnes was on those LA Clippers teams. Who else? Grant Hill played for them. Jamal Crawford played with them for a little bit. But that 2013 Game 6, Grizzlies had a chance to close out that game. They ended up doing it. But that was the game when, if you look at the clips online, Zach Randolph and Blake Griffin got into that huge wrestling match at the free throw line. Blake kind of went at his knees and Zach just kind of fell on top of him and then started choking him. That's that game. Zach Randolph got thrown out of the game halfway through. So Chris Paul elbowed Marc Gasol in the gut, got kicked out of the game for it. And then Zach Randolph was chirping at the bench, at the Clippers bench. He got thrown out. Comes off the floor. He's popping his jersey. Tony Allen is throwing the towel around. The crowd's going nuts. I'm sitting literally 6 rows behind the Grizzlies bench when all that happened. And so that environment, those Clippers Grizzlies matchups, specifically that game, the Grizzlies ended up beating them. They won the series 4-2. Just was such an incredible environment. Because I mean, I'm a big NBA basketball guy. I would watch NBA basketball over any sport in the entire world. But being able to see that was just incredible. So number 1 for me was 2013 Game 6, Memphis versus the LA Clippers. And I will forever, ever dislike Chris Paul, Matt Barnes, and especially Blake Griffin for all of that. I can't stand either one of those. So Matt Barnes came to the Grizzlies after that, and there's only 2 guys that have ever played. There's 3 guys that have ever played for Memphis that I just could not stand. Number 1, Matt Barnes. Number 2, Vince Carter. Number 3, Grayson Allen. Like I love all Grizzly players. I could never get behind Grayson Allen, Vince Carter, or Matt Barnes ever.
All right. I don't know why Vince Carter, but I think you've told me before, so I don't need the explanation. But number 1 for me, not going to be a popular opinion, but it is bar none number 1 because it was super cool. But Tennessee, Florida, 2016, college game day was there. I think it was week 4. Tennessee hadn't beaten Florida in 13 years or whatever, and went to the game. Like I said, game day was there, so it was kind of the same thing as Memphis. Like get out there early, seeing the game day crew for the first time.
Yeah,
it was me, my dad, my best friend went. And it's kind of the same fit. Like we're not going to beat Florida again, but like it'd be fun, whatever. So we'll go to the Tennessee game, go watch them, see what they do. And Tennessee goes down 21-0 at halftime, I think.
Yep. And came back and won the game.
Yeah, the guy in front of us, as Tennessee's going off to the sidelines, throws a Gatorade bottle at one of the players and gets kicked out of the stadium. Like right in front of us, dude just takes a Gatorade bottle, chunks it, hits a player, gets kicked out. So then we're like, oh, this is terrible. Like, this is not fun. They're getting murdered, whatever. And then Tennessee comes out in the second half. It's like, so this team is like Josh Dobbs, Jalen Hurd, Alvin Kamara, Juwan Jennings, Derek Barnett. Like, this Tennessee's best team until this year. And so they come out in the second half. Yep. I think they went 3 and out in the first drive. And then from there it took off, and they ended up beating Florida. So we were on the 50-yard line on the side of the field where Juwan Jennings made like the bobbling catch and finally came down with it over Jalen Tabor, which, if anybody knows about Jalen Tabor, he's hot garbage. Like, he played at Florida and everybody thought he was a first-round pick, and he ended up being like a 5th-round pick by the Patriots and flamed out, whatever. But it was the loudest anything I've ever been in. Like 103,000 people losing their freaking minds. Like, I felt like I was having a heart attack. It felt like there was an earthquake in there. Like, it's crazy. Like, for 100,000 people to be screaming at the same time is insane. It makes you feel like your chest is about to fall out. Like, it was crazy. It was wild. A super cool experience. You know, my dad's been a Tennessee fan forever, so it was really cool to.
And how old were you when this happened? When was this?
18. It was 2016, so I was 18. So wow. I think me and my best friend were in our senior year of high school. Yeah, it was my senior year of high school. And like I said, Dad's always been a Tennessee fan, and we had been to a couple games before, but just like people had given us tickets to like smaller games. But we went to this one legitimately. My aunt, my uncle, and my 2 cousins were there too. None of us sat together because we scalped tickets. So me, my dad, and my best friend sat together, and then all my family sat like in the corner of the end zone. So Crazy. It was just a fun time, crazy experience, and super, super cool.
All right. Hey, that's our top 5 lists. We would love to hear from you in the comments on this video, your top 5 sporting events that you've ever been to. I know it's a long video, but we would love to hear from you what your thoughts are. So hit us up in the comments on Twitter, all that. We would love to know your top 5 favorite sporting events you've ever been to.